Shaunti Feldhahn is a nationally syndicated columnist and best-selling author. She holds a master's in public policy from Harvard University, has worked on Wall Street and Capitol Hill. Her personal interviews and nationally syndicated representative surveys of more than 3,000 men have yielded surprising findings that every professional needs to hear, and is documented in her latest book, The Male Factor. Currently, Shaunti shares her findings with organizations internationally.
Starting in 2001, I started rather unexpectedly doing an awful lot of research on how men think and feel. We as talented, educated, skilled women can shoot ourselves in the foot and not even know it. Ways that we can sabotage our careers and not know it just by the way that we interact with the men that we work with and may not know how something we are doing or saying is being perceived. We've had so many programs for flex time, for example, or skills development. We've studied on-ramps and off-ramps and all these things that are very legitimate, very important. Most companies have developed a really good bucket of programs to help women advance. But what I've realized is that there's this giant hole in the bucket because the one thing they can't do is keep you from shooting yourself in the foot. That is what I've been spending the last number of years researching. I've conducted a survey of men all over the country, multiple surveys actually, professionally developed scientific surveys of men all over the country to get what they're really privately thinking and feeling inside about us as women. And I hope that that one element will be a key factor in helping us advance in the way that I know all of us want to and are capable of. Let me show you a clip from the survey that I did, a nationally representative survey I'll explain in a minute, where I asked the men and the women on the survey, are there things that even skilled and talented women sometimes unintentionally do, basically to shoot themselves in the foot because they don't understand how they're being perceived? And as you can see, 2/3 of men said, yeah, they agree with that, and even more women said, yeah, okay, I kind of agree with that. We view life very holistically. It's sort of everything is a part of life. We have our personal life and our kids and our work, and it's all part of this big life, and we're sort of the same person everywhere we go, and we sort of function by the same rules. It's a very holistic view. Men, really interesting, men have a totally different way of viewing the world, where instead it's like there's personal world and there's working world, and it's like they leave one world, they cross a bridge, they get on the elevator, they get off the elevator, and they are in work world. And the difference is that in their minds, they function by completely different sets of rules. Let's hear from one executive that we caught on camera explaining this.
It's not just sort of an opinion, it's not just slightly different. I think that to the guy, there are what I would call rules. Not really written, not really articulate, not everyone would necessarily agree on those rules, but they're there. And every guy knows that there's some kind of rules that say you do things differently to business than you do at home or on the golf course.
What are the laws of gravity of the business world? One of them, you've heard, men are quite uncomfortable with emotions in the workplace. Has anybody noticed this? There's actually tons of connections between the hemispheres. The deal is, though, with men, there's a lot fewer connections because the impact of testosterone basically limits those connections, and the impact of estrogen builds them, okay? So the more connections you have, the more processing capacity you have to do a bunch of different things. But for our purposes, one of those things is that women have the capacity to process thoughts and emotions at the same time, okay? Men don't. So let's take this to the next step. What does that mean? If they see you being, quote unquote, emotional, they think you're not thinking clearly either as a woman. And that is not true. We assume getting emotional is confined to one thing, getting visually upset and teary-eyed, and it's not. In men's minds, that's just the starting point. And there's all these other things that men perceive as emotional. Let me give you just a few examples. We all know the getting tearful. How about getting defensive? Personality conflicts, any kind of personality conflicts. Or like, to a guy, it doesn't belong at work. It's one of those rules of the working world, right? This isn't personal, it's business. That's what a man means. Holding opinions too strongly.
So for a man to see a woman being emotional and say, well, she must not be thinking clearly, well, that would be his experience. So I thought that was really interesting, because I have seen guys do that in the workplace and say, hey, you know, that woman must not be thinking clearly. Well, women just work differently, and we can think and experience emotions at the same time.
I'm going to demonstrate for you as close as I can get to what the man's visual nature is like. Okay, I challenge you on something. Look at the letters and don't read the words. Okay? It's impossible, right? You can't look at the letters and not read the words. Your brain reads it without you ever intending to, and even when you're trying not to. That's what the man's visual nature is like. Basically, and I hate to say it so bluntly, but his brain reads great body before he's even aware of it. But let's look at this. This is actually the key statistic here. I gave the men a scenario, and I say in a business meeting, if a woman is standing up to give a presentation and she's all business, but she's wearing that low-cut top, what's sort of the impact? What's going through your mind? 2/3 of men say they're missing what she is saying. And let me tell you why. This is the way the men described it. They are spending their whole time going, look at her face, look at her face, look at her face. What did she say about that risk management number? Look at her face. What? I asked the woman and I asked the men, what are you thinking when you see a woman dressed that way? Or what are you thinking when you are dressing that way? Only 1 out of 4 women said, I want the men around me to look at my body. Now, I'm actually surprised it was that high. 3 out of 4 men are like, of course she wants the men around her to look at her body. Why else would she dress that way? Why else she would dress that way is this number. We know. It's not about trying to get that kind of attention. We're just trying to look good. We're trying to wear what is in style.
I feel like sometimes I too try to be, fashionable, and it made me wonder, do I need to wear a jacket every day, or do I need to wear a cardigan every day, and how am I being perceived in the workforce by men?
I really like the scientific backing and the explanations. I think that's going to help me retain the information and, I guess more broadly apply it. I can't wait for our book to come out.